In today's chess video, I'm going to be showing you two games where I play against 1500s and use some very basic fundamentals to overwhelm my opponents in a very easy and nice fashion. Stay tuned and let's get straight into it. Our opponent plays e3 and this obviously is not a really fundamentally sound opening, and this is what you usually will see around people who are around 1400, 1500-ish. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to play with some very strong fundamentals. We're going to do the ABCs of chess, which is just attack the center, bring other pieces, and castle the king. Let's see this. So our opponent plays bishop e2, not a great move. He's not gaining a lot of space in the center, which gives me the opportunity to gain lots of space in the center. Opponent plays here, and I have no clue what they're doing there. So let's just bring our pieces out. Let's just develop our pieces to cool squares, and we got this nice formation over here that I do like. Our opponent plays a3. He might be trying to play b4. I think I'm just going to play a5. I'm just going to stop him from playing what he wants to do. He plays b3, which again is not really fundamentally sound, because why would you put the bishop here if you make the fianchetto square over here? So that doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm going to castle, because castling is good for one's health. And now, I think right now is a good time for us to come up with a plan. Now, our opponent is coming up with their own plan. They want to go for this large kingside attack, which I do approve from my opponent. This is actually really smart from them. They are trying to attack my king, which they should be doing because, well, their king is in the center, and I have not really done much here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what my opponent's trying to do. When it comes to chess, a lot of people mess up here and they don't really ask what their opponent's doing, but I think my opponent's about to play pawn g4. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to play queen d7. Why? Because it stops g4. Now, my opponent might play f3 because he really wants to play g4, but we'll cross that road when our opponent plays it. Now, I'm not sure if he will play it, but if he plays it, I believe I'm going to break in the center. Now, my opponent plays knight g3, which is interesting because this move stops his kingside attack, which allows me to retreat here. I'm not going to retreat here because there's a common pattern here of h5 trapping my bishop, which is not good for me. So in this position, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a very generic plan here. Now, what is a generic plan? A generic plan is just saying, hey, I want to attack this side of the board, and how am I going to do that? I'm just going to bring in all my pieces. Really, it's as simple as that, guys. When it comes to making a plan, it's all about just saying, hey, I want to attack this side of the board. I'm just going to bring all my pieces to that side. So let's think about which side I'm going to be attacking in this position. So since my opponent doesn't have a lot of pieces here, I think I'm going to choose this side of the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gain a lot of space on this side. As you guys can see, I play pawn d5. Why? Because this move basically says I'm getting a lot of space here. It opens up my position so I get a lot of pieces on this side of the board. And now I can just bring in my pieces slowly but surely to attack this side. I'm going to start with queen d6. Why? Because I'm attacking the weakness. Gain space, attack weaknesses. It's that simple. So my opponent says he wants to take my bishop, but I think I'm going to just take this pawn. My plan is to attack this side of the board, so I'm actually really happy that my opponent just gave this for me for free. If your opponent gives you free pawns on the side that you're attacking, that obviously gives you an advantage. Now, what is this plan I'm going for? I'm attacking the queen side, but what is the point of a queen side attack? Well, the point of a queenside attack is very simple. We're going to disregard our opponent's last blunder, but I'm going to first teach you guys what to do with a queenside attack. The point is win a pawn usually, and then go for a passed pawn. Promote one of your pawns, and when you do that, you will have a very good time. It's not like a kingside attack where you checkmate the king. Obviously, you cannot checkmate the queen when you go for a queenside attack, but you can gain a pawn like I did, and go for a queenside attack like b5, a4. Now, this move is just bad because it gives me a free piece, which is pretty good for me. And so I'm just going to take, and my opponent decides to give me a free queen. Does this happen a lot at this 1500 level? You guys tell me. It's a pretty simple game, so I think I will take this one. So let's play one for white. So in this position, I'm just going to play basic opening. e4, we're just going to play knight f3. Oh, not if my opponent plays this. This is called the Scandinavian. I like to call this the Scandinavian. It's not a very good opening, and this is a setup that I really like to do against the Scandinavian. And if you're just learning openings, it's not important for you guys to basically memorize openings. Like, you don't need to memorize, oh, I do this, you do this, I do this, I do that, you do this. But what is important is you just understand ideas. And so in this position over here, I understand some ideas that I want to get a very strong center like this. And my opponent plays this move, which is a little bit fascinating to me because it allows me to play bishop b5. One thing I don't like, and I see a lot of people, even below 2000 make, is that they like to move their knight in front of the c pawn. I think this is just not good. Because generally, what you want to do, guys, is you want to move your c pawn, and by, putting your knight in front of the c pawn, you're definitely not allowing that. So in this position, I'm just going to castle my king. I'm going to keep my king safe. He's attacking my bishop. I'm just going to move back here, attacking his knight. Okay, my opponent plays bishop g4. Makes a lot of sense. The idea here is that he's protecting his knight with his queen, which makes sense. I'm just going to play c3. Strong fundamentals here. If he takes my knight, I'm going to take back, and then he would take my pawn on d4, which I don't want to happen. I'm just going to play rook e1. When you can face your rook against your opponent's king, you should. So let's play this over here. Let's play h3. Let's kick this bishop away, tell this bishop to go away. And my opponent actually plays this very strange move, pawn to h5. When your opponent plays a move like this, it's so important for you guys to just stop and calculate and think. So many people would do one of these two wrong things when it comes to your opponent's strange move. And number one is that they just take without thinking, or number two is they don't take and they don't calculate. They don't think about what the opponent's trying to do, which leads them to missed opportunities because, well, this is just a free bishop. So let's calculate. Let me do a very basic calculation here for you guys. I'm going to take this bishop. What will he do? He'll take back because it opens up the file. And what happens if I just move my knight? So, does he have any threats? Maybe I would be scared of pawn g3. Not pawn g3, but bishop d6. Bishop d6 attacks my knight. So if I move my knight to like f1, my opponent has queen h4. And he has mate on h1, and it's very hard to stop. Very, very hard to stop. In fact, it might be impossible for me to stop. So in this position, okay, I definitely can't play knight h2. What if I take here and then play knight to e5? Well, this one might be a little bit better because his knight might take, I might capture back, but he might still play bishop c5. But after all this, my queen can take on g4, which stops queen h4, which means that while I do need to be a little bit careful, I think my king is safe. So I'm actually just going to take that. No, take that, let him take me back, and I'm going to play this knight e5 move that I said I was going to play earlier because it opens up my queen, and also he doesn't have this queen h4 scary looking move that my opponent would do usually in these type of positions. So in this position, as I said, I'm going to capture with the pawn, not the rook, because bishop d6 would come with tempo, but now it's up to my opponent to figure out what he wants to do. Now this move is a very interesting move. I didn't actually calculate this g3 move. It's actually a nice move. I really like this move by my opponent because if I take, he has this bishop check here. And that bishop check might be very annoying. But again, we don't calculate using guesses. Instead, I will say, okay, I take this, and he plays bishop c5 check. What do? Can I play bishop e3? No, because the knight will take me. So what do? Well, if I take bishop c5 check, I play king f1. What am I scared about in this position? Queen f6 doesn't work because I take. What about rook h8? Then I play king over here. Does he have a knight check? I don't think so. I don't think he has a knight check here. Does he have a queen check? Not really. So, okay, that looks pretty good. It doesn't look like there's anything scary right away. But do I have to do this is the question. Is there another thing I could play in this position that doesn't get me to, lose or get my king in such a dangerous position? In a real chess game, you would calculate here. Now, obviously, f3 is not very good. It's just the worst f takes g3. So what about if I play queen f3? I threaten to take this pawn. If he takes me, I take back. And, okay. So that's something. It keeps my king here and it stops rook h1 ideas. But bishop c5 can be annoying still if my opponent plays something like b6. Maybe I take his knight, then play something like bishop e3. In that position, it looks like pretty protected here for me. So in this position, I think I could play queen f3. I could also take there. I'm not sure which one I want to do. So in this position, I could also even do rook e3. But I think in this position, queen f3 looks pretty decent if I do say so myself. So I'm going to play queen f3. Why? Because again, my calculations, I realized that this is probably fine for me. If he takes me, I take back over here. And bishop c5 is not a problem. I will just take their bishop. So again, I calculated here, and you might say I spent a lot of time there, but when it comes to these very complicated moves, these scary moves from your opponent, it's so important you use the time. What are you saving your time for? In this position, he plays this skewer, but I can just play g3 and get rid of it. So tell the bishop to go away. Now, he could take, but that's probably a mistake because I take back and his queen cannot enter my position. So again, I'm not too worried about anything here. So I'm waiting for my opponent to move. I think he's going to move his bishop back to e7. I suppose he could also play bishop g5, just like in this position over here. And now I can just develop my pieces. So, okay, do I just take? No, to take is a mistake, generally speaking, because you don't want to develop his queen for free. So what I'm going to do is I might play knight d2 here, and this looks like a risky move because it allows like one of these moves, but I don't think any of this is actually very useful because my rook can take, and two minor pieces are generally better than one. So I'm going to play knight d2. I'm just going to try to develop my knight to this very strong e4 square. And then if he takes me, well, I take back, and well, I just have free development, and it's just really nice in this position. So my opponent's thinking here about what to do. If I were him, to be honest, it's a little bit difficult here because I've stopped his attacks and I spent time to think about ways to stop the opponent's attack. When you're at the lower levels, what I find is a lot of people play very aggressively, but if you just find ways to defend against their threats, develop your pieces, you will usually end up in a very happy position. So just take your time in your chess games. No need to rush, and you'll beat these 1500s. It's not very difficult. You just have to play safe, defensive moves, and your opponents will eventually blunder. Now, my opponent plays this crazy move that I did not even calculate. Knight to f4. And it has a crazy idea. He's trying to play knight h3. And if, guys, I take, which I have to in this position, if I take and he plays bishop h4, well, the idea is, well, he gets to take my rook. So, I'm going to play here anyways. I have to. And I'm going to take back. And the important thing for me here is that my queen still defends against this queen h4 move. I'm still not letting him do the move he wants. And this actually ends up very good for me because what ended up happening here was that really all that happened was my opponent traded off pieces for me. I got two minor pieces for a rook, which is generally better for the person who got the two minor pieces. So let's bring the knight up. Okay, he's castled a king, makes sense. Let's play bishop e3. I'm developing my pieces. I'm making sure my king is safe. He might play g5 here. If I were him, I would play g5 because it tries to open things up. Now, but I can just take him, and that's not really problematic here. So, again, the one thing I'm scared about here is my king safety. My king is not safe, and so I need to make sure that it does become safe. Now, in this position, he plays f5. Question for you guys. Would you en passant here? I know a lot of people think you have to en passant, but you don't have to en passant. And in this position, hold your urges, do not en passant, because when you're under attack, when your king's under attack, you want to keep things safe. So I'm just going to play knight g5. Block everything here, okay? Defend this h3 square, stop the queen from ever going to h4, and we're making a threat of bishop takes e6. Not that this is a really important pawn in this position, it's just a fun pawn for us to capture in the future. To be honest, what I would probably prioritize here is something like rook d1, develop my pieces, trade off one of his rooks. Because the less pieces on the board, the easier it is for me to win the game. So, my opponent is trying to double up here, which makes a lot of sense. When you are down material, what you want to do is go for a counterattack. And my opponent is doing a very good job of that. So, what I'm going to do in this position is, contrary to popular belief, am I going to take this pawn? Probably not. I'm not going to take this pawn. Instead, what I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to play bishop f1. And that looks like such a defensive move. But the idea here is simple. If I play my bishop to g2, how is my opponent's attack ever going to work? Because my bishop is defending such an important square. Not only that, I have my bishop attacking this very important b7 square. So I could just loop my queen around and maybe start a counterattack of my own. But as you guys can see, I've not attacked really my opponent just yet. My opponent's down material, so I'm the one just defending. I'm countering my opponent's threats. I'm countering my opponent's ideas. I'm making sure I'm not blundering. I'm asking what my opponent's doing every single move. And I just make sure I play some safe moves. So in this position, my opponent played queen d7. I think I'm just going to play rook d1. Just a safe developing move in this position. My bishop is protecting against c7, so I'm not really too worried. My opponent is attacking my rook, which is sure, and attacking my pawn, but I don't care about the pawn. No one should be caring about the pawn in this position because the pawn is not important. What is important is I defend against my opponent's attack, and I threaten my own things after I defend against everything my opponent throws at me. As you guys can see, my opponent's attack has gone nowhere, and because I'm safe now, I can slowly develop my pieces to nice squares, and now I can win the game quite easily. So, funny thing is this. If my opponent takes on a2, I want you guys to pause your videos right now, And tell me, what would you play in this position if your opponent decide to do that, or to take my a2 pawn? Now, opponent plays rook h2. Not sure. Actually, he might be trying to sack it, but it doesn't really do much. I'm gonna play b3. I'm trying to make my opponent go off this diagonal. My opponent might just sack on g2, but this doesn't do much because my queen can capture back. So that would be a big mistake for my opponent, and I'll just be up 10,000 pieces. But he might do that. He might go for this desperate attack because he is, well, I just said it. He might be desperate. So we'll play b3, and his queen goes all the way back. He knows that I'm threatening like these checkmates and ideas. So my opponent is trying to play queen h5. Again, I'm asking what my opponent's doing so I can defend against the threats. I see my opponent's trying to play here. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to play queen e2. Why? Because I defend against queen h5. I'm saying no, I'm not letting you do this. If I were my opponent here, he might just play something like rook h6 here, because the idea is simple. He's just going to try to triple up over here, which I suppose you can, but all I'm going to do is play queen f3. Again, I'm triple defending h1, which is pretty good for me. But not only am I triple defending h1, I'm also threatening my own mate in this position over here on b7. So I'm going to play my queen over here. As I said, I was going to play make. I'm going to threaten mate. I think my opponent has to play something like c6 in this position. Not sure what other move can defend here, but then I bring in my useless rook, my rook that has not been doing anything. Once my rook comes in here, it will take this pawn. It will be useful. I can even do some cool sacrifices here most likely, and I will essentially win the game. As you guys can see, I made sure everything is safe, and now my opponent made his final blunder of the game. Queen e8, he isn't asking what I'm doing, and so in this position, I will just win the b7 pawn, and that is checkmate. Let me know in the comment section below if there are any questions, or if you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!